Welcome back. We are talking to Leon Su. Leon is from the island of Hawaii. He's the chair of the Decolonization Alliance, headquartered at the United Nations Plaza in New York City. He also serves as the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Islands, a nation in the process of being restored as an independent state. Leon, when you were marching the 2 miles, what were the emotions that you felt from the beginning of the march, where you didn't know exactly what was going to happen, and the things that you saw and experienced to the end of the march?
Okay. I wasn't there at the beginning of the march, but when the march did start, I worked my way backwards through all the marchers. And so I did see videos, of course, at the start. And at the start, there was a lot of promptings and speeches made by elders and by organizers to just lay out the groundwork for why we are there, as well as the spirit in which we are to conduct ourselves. So I saw those videos, and they were really, really inspiring. So that when the march started, there were, of course, some more formal people up front of the march. Formal meaning those that would put forward with the conch shells to blow to announce the coming of the people behind them. And so that was really quite impressive, because there were about a dozen conch shell blowers across the street, and in their more of a traditional garb. What was really neat was again to see the people marching, and of course it was more like a stroll. But what was going on was that there was a lot of interaction with the onlookers, and so some of our people would come over and talk and hug the tourists who were on the side of the road, because this went through Waikiki, the main road through Waikiki. And so most of the audience were tourists, the onlookers. And so they were curious, so some flyers were handed out to explain what it was about. But there was this real ohana, this family event kind of a feeling to it. Didn't look like well, there were lots of banners and flags, so it did kind of look a bit political. But the spirit of it was much more family. People saying, this is who we are, and you're welcome and to learn about this, and so people were talking quite a bit with the people on the side, and the march was actually fairly slow, so it gave people the opportunity to engage in conversation. So it was like a strolling, informational, and how would you say, just a relationship building, kind of a march where people would say, "Oh, aloha, would you like to know more about us?" And of course, the tourists were very, very interested, because they were being confronted with a whole different picture about Hawaii and about what happened here politically, but also a whole different picture of how we're handling this. And there was no spirit of rancor or of upsetness. It was just basically people just expecting a resolution to this, but a peaceful and an orderly and a beneficial resolution for everybody. So I think the march itself embodied what we want the world to know about our people and about how we view ourselves and we view our land and our relationship with the land and our relationship with our country. And I think it was a beautiful display of not just unity, but of a concept that we are patriots who love our land and love our country.
It sounds like a joyous celebration of your culture.
Yes. And of course, there were many chants, songs, different schools, as you were saying, and different halaus, hula organizations were there, and everybody was contributing in some way of expressing aloha. So it was really, really an amazing thing. And I tell you, these tourists will never again see, it's been the first time that they've seen something like this that wasn't packaged in a touristy way. It was a genuine expression of the people. And I'm sure these tourists were treated to actually a face-to-face meeting with the people of Hawaii, not just an occasional wave at a luau or something like that, but these are the people of Hawaii who they never see otherwise. And so this was a great thing in that I think it set the tone for the future of our movement and where we're going and how we can do this, because it just worked great. And it communicated what we wanted to communicate, and it brought our people together.
That's wonderful. Can you tell us more about what is actually in store in the future and how this, you believe, will affect the future? I know that you've been working very hard with the United Nations for many years, and so now I believe that you've had some successful results, and
Yes.
How does that affect the future?
Yes, okay. Most people kind of misunderstand what we are actually trying to do at the United Nations. But to just give the basis, we are still a sovereign nation because we can prove and we understand that the Hawaiian kingdom was taken over unlawfully by the United States, that there was no actual transition or acquisition by the United States of the Hawaiian kingdom. And I'm careful to say the Hawaiian kingdom because we want to differentiate the Hawaiian kingdom from the usurping governments that came after, which was the Republic of Hawaii, and then the territory of Hawaii, and then the state of Hawaii. These are all foreign or let's say unlawful entities that took over our nation. So at the United Nations, we have been for the last 40 years trying to educate and to get people aware of what the true status of Hawaii is, and that is a sovereign nation under occupation by a foreign power, and that foreign power is the United States. Most people think we are there to get the United Nations to try to release us. We are not. What we're there to do is to educate the different countries. There are 193 member states of the United Nations. We're trying to educate them about an injustice and a wrong that was done to us over 100 years ago. And so the education is the important part of it. And that's why we have been relentlessly attending all of these different organizational meetings at the United Nations. We are not there yet as a country. We are there as a nation of people who are being occupied and held captive by the United States. There is an example that is used quite often. I think is quite effective, and that is we were told we were adopted, but then we found out we were kidnapped. And that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make people see the fact that we're a nation in captivity. We're not a happy state of the United States. And that, although on the surface it may look peaceful and it may look, inviting and all that, underneath it there is a grave injustice that robbed us of our nation, and of our freedom. So what we're doing at the United Nations is to communicate this, and we've been very successful, particularly in recent years, so that the United Nations and the countries in the United Nations are now very much aware of the fact that the Hawaiian Kingdom is under an illegal occupation. Now, it comes, what can they do about it? Actually, they can't do very much about it except to hold the United States accountable for the crime that it has committed against the Hawaiian Islands. But But for them to do that, they would have to see that there is a fervent and a sincere effort on the part of the Hawaiian Islands, of the Hawaiian people, to regain their nation as an independent state. So, in other words, the initiative needs to come from us to show ourselves as a nation, to show ourselves as a determined people who want to regain our nation. And that is why this was so important. And this Unity March last week is so important because that is what we are showing. Besides the behind-the-scenes work that we're doing to reform the nation, there needs to be a public demonstration and many public expressions and a growing expression of support for our nation, the return of our nation.
Okay.
And so that's what is so important. That's how they connect. The more the international community can see us acting as a nation and acting as a people who desire to have their nation back, the more support we can expect from them. And
Okay.
the support meaning pointing to the United States and saying to the United States, you must release these people. You cannot hold them captive any longer. And so we're quickly approaching that stage. So what we're needing to do, of course, is to build up our nation and build up the desire of our people.
Thank you. Thank you, Leon. For those of you who are just listening, please listen to us. We're talking to Leon Su from the island of Hawaii, chair of the Decolonization Alliance, headquartered in the United Nations Plaza in New York City. He also serves as the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Islands, a nation in the process of being restored as an independent state. So, Leon, I would like to know a little more about what you've personally accomplished recently. There's many things, but what are the highlights that you feel you have personally accomplished with all of your movement with the United Nations?
Oh, okay. Of course, I've been attending the United Nations for about 10 years now as the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Hawaiian Kingdom. But we are not a recognized state in the United Nations, and we're not even sure we want to be. But what we're doing there is that we can access the various ambassadors and diplomats at the United Nations and to tell them our story, to sit down and talk with them and present our story, as well as to file some formal papers of complaints and things like that. But this way, so what has been accomplished is that we have gotten many of the states of the United Nations attuned to what our situation is. And recently there was a number of articles over the past year, or past 8 months or so. There have been many articles written about Hawaii being under occupation by the United States. And I'm talking about international articles in Hungary, in Russia, in China, in France, in Switzerland, and Germany, and all over the world through the various networks, through the network called Russia Today, through the Al Jazeera network, and they have been exposing the fact that Hawaiians want their country back. And so this is the biggest success, is being able to communicate and transfer or create this awareness about our situation. But what happened very recently, even though these nations are aware of the situation, very few of them are willing to stick their necks out and challenge the United States or provoke something, or to do something that is normal because of the way that the United Nations functions, and that is every country is looking out for its own best interest. So they're not about to take on something to do with the United States, this huge country and very influential country. They're not about to take something up with the United States unless it was very, very crucial to their own best interest. So it's difficult to get anybody to say anything about our situation at the United Nations or within these types of intergovernmental organizations. So in May, Pakistan actually hinted at, they asked the United States a question at a formal review of the United States. They asked a specific question that alluded to the fact that the Hawaiian Kingdom is probably should probably seek the help of the Decolonization Alliance, the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations. In other words, they strongly hinted that Hawaii has an international status rather than a domestic U.S. status, and that maybe this should be pursued. Now, this was as good a statement and as forward a statement as we could ever expect at this point of the stage. And so we're very grateful that Pakistan did this. Now, as I said, there were news articles that preceded that, and then news articles that succeeded after this particular incident in May. The United States was put on the spot, and they answered in a very inadequate way, meaning they didn't really have an answer, and they kind of said, well, the Hawaiian Kingdom or the Hawaiians are Hawaii is part of the United States. And that was their basic answer, which was totally inadequate and inappropriate for how the question was being posed. And basically, the question was saying, what about the international status of the Hawaiian Islands? And the United States avoided it. They dodged the question. So this raised a lot of eyebrows, and it actually broke the ice for us. So now we can begin speaking to these nations in terms of our international status and steer the conversation in that way. And that's going to help us tremendously because more countries are going to start using that question with the United States. What about the international status of the Hawaiian Kingdom or the islands of Hawaii?
Okay. Leon, thank you so much for sharing your eyewitness experience of the Aloha Aina Unity March in Waikiki and for all the things that you've done and for the information that you are giving us. We appreciate it very much. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo, Leon. You're listening to V93FM.com, the Sandwich Island Network Radio. We'll be right back. Mauna Care Now is sponsored by Hawaii, A Voice for Sovereignty, a documentary film by photojournalist Catherine Bachnight that explores the culture of the native Hawaiians and their connection to the land. At the forefront of the film are social, economical, and ecological issues that have developed in Hawaii since the takeover by the U.S. in 1893, revealed in interviews with grassroots indigenous people and scholars such as author Haunani K. Trask. The documentary's goal is to raise awareness of the issues faced by the native Hawaiians, which threatens their ancient and environmentally sustainable culture. Bachnight brings this film to the world stage by theatrical release, screenings at international film festivals, and television programming. More information at HawaiiAVoiceForSovereignty.com.